quitting is not the best thing, but the only way you can stop yourself from quitting or failure is to monetize it. You need to make money so that you can continue, because if you don't, you quit eventually, really.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, great Jabesi. Previously, episode 1578 of the 12-Minute Convos podcast. It's been just 2 years, 1 month, 4 days, 6 hours, and 45 minutes since we last recorded that conversation. That was then. This is now. Gray, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Angel. Thanks for having me on the podcast again. It feels like yesterday when we recorded the last episode, but like you say, it's 2 years ago.
It does feel like yesterday. I think it's a podcasting. I mean, so how are things evolved with your podcast, the Grey Ave podcast? What's going on there?
Yeah, the Grey Ave podcast, it has evolved very well, and it's always been growing. And now it has opened a lot of doors for me for other business, because it has grown my network, right? So out of that there's a lot of business coming from the podcast side, and having a lot of guests, learning a lot of things from it, and now just trying to implement and change things a little bit better, because also I'm starting to learn the different trends of podcasting. Mine is always long form, but I cannot ignore the data that's showing I can see myself that people are more consuming very short content. So I'm trying to change it up a little bit.
Interesting. Yeah, I heard that last night as well from a friend in Australia. He was saying the same thing, that he's going to change up the format of his podcast. I like listening to long podcasts, but I guess if the data is showing it, we have to adjust accordingly, right?
Yeah. So you know what it is? It's the thing. What I've learned now is that it's not that you cannot deliver the same amount of content in a short period of time. I feel the same about books sometimes when I read, like, this book couldn't have been this long, or it could have been just a podcast done with. And I learned this from listening to Navar's podcast. I don't know if you ever listened to Navar Ravikant podcast.
I've not.
He has one. It's called How to Get Rich Without Being Lucky. So that the title is just clickbait, but the podcast is all about building businesses, and especially startups and stuff like that. And they're very short, like 2 to 5 minutes. And he has, I think, about 2 hours worth of 2 to 5 minutes episode. And it's incredible. You listen to one small episode, you feel like you've absorbed a lot of content. So I think it is possible to compress content into small bits. So that's exactly what I'm trying to do, but it's not easy.
It's intriguing. Netflix is really creating a type of culture, an evolution, if you would, of how you digest content, right? You look at an episode on Netflix. When we were looking at TV in our younger years, you would look at a 30-minute segment of a show, and it'll have like 15 minutes of ads, right? And
yes.
The show would be 15 minutes. Now things have evolved where I can go look at the entire season, one after the other. And instead of sitting in front of the television for 30 minutes, I'll do 3 hours. I could probably do a 3-hour marathon, right? And it's interesting that people are digesting content that way. Are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, but you know what it is? This is a win for... It's a win for different types of formats. So if you're doing podcasts that are not video, and then you don't have you cannot leverage the what Netflix does, because it works for them that people want to watch very short kind of content. But then when it comes to shows, say on all the big TV shows that people watch on Netflix, they want it longer.
Yeah.
They even complain that it's not long enough.
Yeah.
So the adjustment to that would be video, but not just video about people talking. It doesn't help much. From what I've learned is that you need to be more creative in your content creation, have some storyline to it, add extra footage. So it's just that, I think what I've just learned is that being able to create video material, for example, is not being able to do that will be considered illiterate in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Pretty much like not being able to write, because it has become such an important tool. And I feel like that I already knew how to produce video content before I even started all this podcast, and that was my profession back then. But I think it's something that people have to pay very attention to.
Now, in the podcasting space, there are things that are going on, skills that we're applying as podcasters that are then applicable in principle in other scenarios, in other instances. With the business side of life, are you seeing that as well, where there's a change in the atmosphere of business, where the attention span of the clients, the people that we're selling to, have changed?
What I've seen is not exactly that, but what I've seen is growth. So I've seen this on myself, as let me say, as a guinea pig on that question, because there is content that I was consuming, and sometimes you outgrow the content that you listen to, whether it's the person you listen to or the show that you watch or whatever. If the intent of consuming the content was to learn from it, and sometimes you go beyond that. And I think the only way to sustain this model is to grow yourself as a content creator, so that people feel like they're getting something new. A good example of this I can give to you is Gary Vaynerchuk, right? He has a lot of material, but for a lot of young business people, they can follow him for just a few years, I think. I used to consume a lot of his content, but now I don't see the point of watching a lot of the new stuff because I feel like there's nothing new that I'm learning from it. So, best way to counter that is to say collaborate with others to create new content, and I think just to explore more, because everything becomes kind of stale after a while, and then you keep repeating the same message.
So do you think that that person needs to evolve in the way they're sharing content, or should they stay there? Because there'll always be people that are coming in on the entry level. And then, I mean, what you're talking about is, let's say, the midway level, right? If there is such a thing. But do you think that person should adjust, the content creator, or should they remain where they are?
You know what? It's hard. It's hard for me to think of it like that. So the way I look at content, I look at it like this. I don't think people should just become content creators. I don't think that's a very sustainable model. I think you have to be doing something and then create content as your outlet, right? Because content helps you to reach out to many people. It helps you to get attention. Attention is very important in every business, really. So I think it's very hard for content creators that just create content that's not covered by anything else on top of it. It's more like, this is what I say, like, I don't read books written by people who write books, right? I read books from people who have done something, then they're writing about how they did it, or their philosophy about other things. So I think the content should just be one arm of yourself or your business, right? To just express your creativity or your philosophy or ideas that you have, or to share your experience. Not as such as just creating the content. That's how I see it.
I believe that. Unfortunately, it's not like that, yeah. But as you correctly say, or I think it's correct, right? That, yeah, the fact that you're creating something that's a vibration of you helps that to remain something that's a legacy block in your life and for the life of others. When we spoke the first time, like, you were all about the hustle, right? You could hear it, right? Gray is on the hustle. It seems as though, as the couple years have passed by, that you're zoning in more, you're aiming for a target more. Is that accurate?
Nothing has changed, man. Nothing really has changed. Still hustling. It's just that these days, I'm more tactical about it. So, and it also depends on which day you find me. So today I'm doing admin and email stuff and, kind of business development things. So I'm more in a different mode. But yeah, if you had to find me, say, on a Monday, things are a little different. So, still hustling. I think it takes a lot of effort and commitment to grow everything. And, I have to hustle. So, that's still going on. And it pays off. The more you committed, the more time you spend, and the more people you talk to, I think the more you can grow, right? So that is still there.
You've never stopped learning.
No, exactly. You never stop learning, and the world is changing so fast, and especially in the world that I'm involved in different markets, whereas, 2 months is such a long time. You have to stay on top of the game, and you have to evolve the businesses to make sure they don't die. And you can see, I mean, especially in my domain of business, we see like business dying every day, pretty much, right? Only a few people are able to evolve them and make them profitable, because I mean, even the podcast right now, to me, it has to be profitable to continue. I wrote a tweet. I remember the other day I was saying that quitting is not the best thing, but the only way you can stop yourself from quitting or failure in any business, even podcasting, is to monetize it. You need to make money so that you can continue, because if you don't, you'll quit eventually, really.
Yeah.
The only reason why people quit is because they're not making anything out of it. If you just go, it's a passion, and then you get burned out and you leave. So the hustle has to be there, whether you're doing your passion project, you're doing a podcast, a business. I think you still got to hustle to make these things run, and have to make money too.
Amazing audience. Again, you're hearing it live from Great Jabesi. You can check out his podcast, The Grey Ave, right? AVE. Great. It's been such of a grand opportunity to check in and know that you're still continuing what you said you would, right? That you are who you are, that you've not given up. Before we leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
Thank you so much for having me, man. I just appreciate you for being on the show. And you should definitely feature again on the Grey Ave, and we can talk about other things, because mine is even very long form. So, we can have more to talk about. Otherwise, everyone else can follow me on social media at Grey, Grey, BTC, or if you type my name, Grey Jabesi, on LinkedIn. My website is greyjabesi.com. That's GREYJABESI.com. I'm also on YouTube, Hardcore Crypto. And yeah, pretty much, I'm on iTunes, Spotify, all these streaming platforms. You can pretty much find my content there.
Love it. Again, Great Jabesi, thank you for being on what is inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.